It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, of course. Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this very show. Just visit Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com, or if you're looking to get a signed copy, just email me, Billy at Talkin' Boxing, TalkinBoxing.com. And also, don't forget, if you want to be part of the show, get your comments, concerns, questions, whatever, answered during the show. Just drop me an email or show up in one of the chat rooms, specifically the YouTube chat room. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by BillyCBoxing.com, where you can also get a copy of my book. Check it out, www.BillyCBoxing.com. I guess you don't need to worry about the wwws anymore. But I got all the latest boxing news, some stuff you might not see other places, about some young fighters and this and that and the other thing over there. And also some updates on my show. So check it out, BillyCBoxing.com. And also, if you're looking to buy anything, you want to buy something, hey, you go to Amazon real quick. Well, check out the Blackett Shopping Network. There's a banner right on the website. Check it out. It's priced great. Plus, you get a discount for going through the website, I guess. Check it out. And today's show is being brought to us in part by CES Boxing, Jimmy Burstfield's Classic Entertainment and Sports. They got back-to-back big shows happening. There's one going on this Saturday at Mohegan Sun and another one going on at Foxwoods. Check out CESBoxing.com or just click the link that's on BillyCBoxing.com. Get yourself some tickets. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame and this year's induction ceremony. And I'm honored and extremely proud to be part of the 2025 Florida Boxing Hall of Fame inductees. And I'd love to have you come and join me over the weekend. It's June 20th through the 22nd. And I'm going to be there in beautiful Florida. Get yourself some tickets. Come on down. Hang out with me and the rest of the inductees. And there's always some other great people there. So come on down. Hey, you need an excuse to get out of town, right? Unless you live in Florida, then go across town. Yeah. But join me, man. This is a great one. This is a really good weekend, and you don't want to miss it. A shout out to my faithfuls that are always in the chat room first, my man Joel and Jesus, and of course, Coach from StrictlyBusinessBoxing.com. So coming up on the show today, Alex Papali scheduled to join us, so we'll get him on. Also, my main topic today, Jake Paul needs to shut the F up. I mean, I'm so sick of this guy. I mean, I'm going to get into it. Why? And all the reasons in a few minutes. Okay. Also coming up later on the show, latest boxing news we'll talk about. We'll get you updated on that. The fights that I feel are worth watching this weekend that are on TV or streamed. I'll break them down and give you my predictions. I got a really good listener email that I'll read and comment on a little bit later. But first, I want to give you guys some fight results from the fight that I picked last week. And I just want to say that, my original pick was right, but I got swayed by Coach in the chat room and then Alex Papalian on air And at the last minute, I changed my original pick and I went the wrong way. Next, I will never do that again. I'll always stick with my first thing. But Derek Chisora, seemingly acting like this was his very last appearance, milked it and really soaked everything up for his performance against Otto Wallen. And at the end of the day, it was an extremely exciting fight, and Derek Chisora turned back the clock and won a unanimous decision, 117, 109, 114, 112, 116, 110. Honestly, the 114, 112 score I felt was out of whack. I thought Chisora dominated the fight. Plus, he dropped Wallen twice, if I recall correctly. Chisora did say that he wants to continue his career and he's looking to fight Usyk, AJ, or Daniel Dubois. And considering this was an elimination fight for the IBF, it seems like Daniel Dubois is going to be in his sights. So we'll see what happens with that. Also, I just wanted to comment about a fight that was on the undercard. Light heavyweight, who's ranked by the IBF and WBC in their top 15, Zach Parker improved to 26-1 when he defeated Mikel Diallo, who was a late sub over 10 rounds, 98-92, 98-93, 97-94, with the way the judges scored that one. So let me get right into this with Jake Paul, all right? So here's the thing. Jake Paul was on his way to, allegedly, and we all know how Canelo works sometimes, but there was a lot of rumors going around, and it was all over social media. I never got any official announcement, but there was a lot of stuff going around on social media that the deal between Jake Paul and Canelo Alvarez for Jake Paul to fight Canelo Alvarez was pretty much a done deal. But then all of a sudden, out of the blue, Canelo signs a 4-fight deal with in Saudi Arabia with Turki Al-Rashid, and which consists of the first fight, which is going to be taking place in May against Skull, who he was going to fight previously, William Skull, who's undefeated. He's the IBF super middleweight champion, 23-0 with 9 knockouts. That's going to be the first fight in May. Then the second fight will be against Terence Crawford. This is the fight I've been waiting for. Terence Crawford will not be fighting before then. As we all know, Canelo Alvarez usually fights twice a year, and he's picking William Skull, for his first fight in May. And then the third fight is scheduled for February of next year. And then the fourth fight is scheduled for October of next year. Both of these apparently taking place in Saudi Arabia. And I believe the Skull fight is taking place in Saudi Arabia as well. But the Terence Crawford fight is taking place in Las Vegas. Now, this was all, I don't know if this was etched in stone, but this was all what had come out. Now, first things first, as far as the deal goes, with Canelo, I thought that was a great. I thought it was a great deal for Canelo to do that with Turki Al-Rashid. I like the fact that he's fighting Terence Crawford. I believe, and I've said this since the rumors of Terence Crawford first came out 2 years ago, that Terence Crawford will beat Canelo Alvarez. And now I'm even more confident that he will, because it seems like Terence Crawford will be adding the weight correctly. He's not rushing, just adding some weight. He's got, all this time to put on the weight correctly. And I got news for you. When you look at some stats that I happen to have in my hand, the age difference is 3 years, which I was a little shocked when I saw it. I mean, I've always thought of Canelo Alvarez as being so young, but he's been around so long. He's 34. Crawford's 37. Um, Now, when you look at some things, the height is the same. They're both 5'8". The reach, actually, Terrence Crawford has a 3.5-inch reach advantage over Alvarez. I believe that that's going to come into play, but we'll have plenty of time to break down that fight and give official predictions. But now on to the reasons why Jake Paul needs to shut the F up. All right. Look, he wanted this fight. Allegedly, he wanted this fight. Why he was going to fight Canelo Alvarez, I don't know. Because we all know Canelo Alvarez would have kicked the snot out of Jake Paul. Look, let me start off by saying this about Jake Paul. All right. I've never met the kid. I respect Jake Paul because I think Jake Paul, let me rephrase that. I respect Jake Paul as a great promoter. He certainly is a great promoter. And I respect Jake Paul for becoming a boxer, if you want to call him that. I mean, he looks a heck of a lot different now than he did a little while ago. But hold that thought, because I gotta have my man Alex Papali join us for this, because I know he's chomping at the bit. What's up, Alex?
Hello, Billy C. How are you?
Well, I'll tell you how I am. I want Jake Paul to shut the F up, okay? And I'm just about to finish my thought, and then I want yours. So I was giving him some accolades, believe it or not. He's a great promoter, and I do give him credit for physically getting into shape. But beating up Mike Tyson, pushing 60, especially when Mike Tyson was already counting the $20 million that he got, and watching these two yucking it up at the Trump organization party, hoisting Mike Tyson around, just substantiated, in my opinion, that it was all a setup fight. But I'm going to read the whole statement that Jake Paul put out, and MVP Promotions, regarding the alleged cancellation of the Canelo Alvarez fight. MVP was in deep negotiations for a blockbuster fight between Jake Paul and Canelo Alvarez on Cinco de Mayo weekend in Las Vegas, a massive event for the Mexican, Puerto Rican, and American fans. And it's disappointing to see how the situation unfolded. MVP operates with integrity, transparency, and respect for the sport, its athletes, and its fans. Unfortunately, not everyone in the boxing world shares those values. The situation is a reminder not to believe everything you read, especially when the current media environment is often controlled by those with hidden agendas, including promoters who have reporters on their payroll. We remain in active discussions with multiple high-profile opponents and are committed to delivering the biggest fights, the most exciting events, and to working with partners who share our value and our commitment to the sport of boxing and its fighters. Jake Paul isn't going anywhere, and neither is MVP. We'll continue to disrupt boxing on our terms. And this, Alex, is why I feel Jake Paul needs to shut the F up. I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. Is he a boxer? Would he have stood a chance against Canelo Alvarez? He certainly wasn't going to con Canelo Alvarez into letting him win for $20 million or even $40 million. Canelo Alvarez has more money than he'll ever spend in a lifetime. What's your thoughts on this whole situation before we go any further?
I certainly don't think he would have gotten Canelo to let him win, but I think getting Canelo to just go easy with him and sort of waltz to a 10-round decision, I think that would have been bad too. Because I think the idea of Jake Paul going 10 rounds with a legitimate active fighter, especially one that's one of the best in the sport, that would be very bad for boxing. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if that was one of the things that probably got the deal to collapse, is maybe Canelo's camp said, look, we're not going soft on him. We're not going to waltz to a decision. And maybe Jake Paul was like, oh, okay, I don't want to get my face broken So, I really don't know. I don't think it's a circus act. So
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul,
Right.
absolutely. I
Right.
think Canelo, you could say what you want about some of Canelo's recent fights, and I think certainly the Skull fight. I got to be careful how you say that. Skull F, you got to be careful.
Right.
But because I think that fight, it's just a placeholder.
That got the deal done. That fight, I don't mean to interrupt you, but that fight got the deal done for Canelo to sign with Turkey Al-Rashid. They originally had 3 fights and 3-fight deal, and Canelo had already said that he was fighting on Cinco de Mayo. So they added that fight and they resurrected the Skull fight because remember, that was in discussion last year. Remember, he was going to fight William Skull at one point last year and ended up not fighting.
I don't. I have to say, I mean, I've been watching boxing every weekend since 1985, and I'm embarrassed to say I never heard of this guy Skull before.
Well, he's a champion. He's
a champion of what?
IBF. So they stripped.
I never even heard of him.
All right, they stripped Canelo. Or Canelo gave up the belt. I'm pretty sure they stripped him for not fighting William Skull. And William Skull ended up with the title and he fought somebody. And so he's the IBF champion. So there is something on the line for Canelo. Okay. For him to get that, title back.
Oh, there he is.
But back to Jake Paul. Look, I agree with what you alluded to. Jake Paul needs to fight somebody. Now there's rumors that he's going to fight Carl Froch. And Carl Froch, let me tell you, Carl Froch is no 60-year-old Mike Tyson. No disrespect to one of my favorite all-time fighters in Mike Tyson. But Carl Froch will still beat the hell out of Jake Paul. And even said he doesn't even need to get paid, that he'll donate his purse to charity, right? I mean, he can't stand Jake Paul. But there's other guys, Alex. I mean, if Jake Paul wanted to be taken seriously, there's a lot of guys that he could fight right now. I mean, personally, I would like to see him fight like a Christian Mabili or a Diego Pacheco is a good fight. Even Edgar Berlanga, who I didn't think was too dangerous. Munguia, I mean, David Morrell, Anthony Yarde, Callum Smith, even Zach Parker, any of those guys, whether they're super middleweights or I named super middleweights and I named light heavyweights, all those guys are legitimate fighters. All he's got to do is fight one of those guys and win, and then I'd be singing a different tune, Alex.
Right. Jake Paul fighting one of those guys? Yeah, I mean, that's certainly not going to happen. Or, yeah, I mean, I think, or even Alvarez already beat Munguia.
I'm not talking about Alvarez fighting those guys. I'm talking about Jake Paul.
Yeah, Jake Paul, I mean, that's just it. Jake Paul, the only way he would want to fight anyone like that, the only people he wants the easiest road or at least the quickest road to stardom. And even though fighting Canelo would not be easy, it would be a huge event. And I think that's just, it doesn't make sense. And
he's already reached stardom.
Let's right. But I think he wants boxing stardom / credibility.
He's got to fight one of those guys to get that.
You don't get credibility by the path of like the most moneyed path. That's not how you get credibility. So It's like, it's not going to work. And I do think, going into it, just the whole, with the way he's thinking of doing it, that's not how it works.
No.
And I think that's why fighting Mike Tyson was so important, is that Mike Tyson has this mystique that people could imagine that he is perpetually invincible, which we saw very clearly he's not. He's a 58-year-old man. And with that comes 58-year-old manhood. And you can't fight a 28-year-old or whatever he is. It's just ridiculous to think of it. If Mike Tyson was fighting with another 58-year-old man, well, maybe it would have been competitive. but the result was not at all competitive. Would it be competitive with Canelo? Absolutely. But I think that's just it, is that I don't know. To me, there's absolutely zero interest in seeing it, because I think if they made some sort of agreement that they would just, that nobody knocks each other out, meaning Alvarez can't knock Paul out, which I wouldn't be surprised if they did. I don't want to see that.
I don't want to. That's not a real fight. That's not a real fight.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, to me, it's really one of those things that I'm glad it's not happening. I love the fight with Crawford. I'm sorry. All due respect to Skull. I guess he did fight on the undercard of Alvarez Munguia. I think it was that fight that he fought on the undercard, but it looked like it was way off TV. Because he fought an 8-rounder. I think that's the only time he's fought in the U.S. So I do think that, and I tell you, that tells you something about the these boxing divisions, because the fact that he can hold a title and barely be known, because I'm not the only one, I'm sure, had never heard his name before. It really is one of those things that it just shows how diluted the sport is.
But that's the word.
In order to keep the Crawford fight intact, it's one of those things that we will all hold our nose and watch that fight. And I guess Canelo's used to having those 2 big paydays, for tax purposes. So he needs a fight in May and he needs a fight in September.
Listen. Canelo, in these last few years, he's been criticized with some of the fighters that he's chosen to fight, and I believe rightfully so. But, it's a big but here, and I say but because Canelo really doesn't have anything to prove, in my opinion. Canelo is a first ballot Hall of Famer. Oh, yeah. He's a throwback fighter. He's, he really, when he was in his prime, remember, he's 34 already. And I believe he's not in his prime anymore. I want to make that perfectly clear. And, he is doing a cash out. The fight against TC is going to be a real fight. Terrence Crawford's coming to win. He's not going there for the payday, even though it will be his biggest payday.
Will it be in Saudi Arabia or will it be in the U.S.?
That one, from what I understand, will be in Las Vegas.
Okay.
The Cinco de Mayo one, which he had the date in Vegas, I'm hearing that's going to be in Saudi Arabia on the 3rd, on May 3rd or something. But anyway,
that makes sense. That the Fighting Skull in Saudi Arabia, it's just a showcase.
Well, the point is getting back to Jake Paul and why he needs to shut the F up is because he has nothing to do with boxing. He's a great promoter because he got, how many gazillions of people to watch Mike Tyson, him fight Mike Tyson. But the truth is this, the only real, and Mike, I'm not saying Mike Tyson's not a real fighter, but he's 58 years old, like you just said.
He was a real fighter.
Right. No, he was great. He's a Hall of Fame fighter.
He's a great retired fighter.
Right. He's a great guy, and he likes his weed. But the thing is the truth of the matter is the only real legitimate fighter that Jake Paul has fought, he lost to, and that was Tommy Fury. Right. Okay, and Tommy Fury is no world beater. No disrespect to the Fury family. I don't want to create fury over there. But the truth of the matter is that if he really wants to make a name for himself, I just named some fighters in the super middleweight / light heavyweight divisions that he could conceivably fight, and they're all money fights because let's face it, Jake Paul is such a good promoter that he could fight Snoopy and get a big audience. That is fact. He's got a huge fan base and he will draw. So look, if he wants to be taken seriously, and not many boxing people take him seriously, then he needs to fight a real contender. End of story. There's no more discussion about Jake Paul, in my opinion. And there just can't be, Alex. I mean, he's not talented. and beating up Mike Tyson. You know why he was chasing Canelo? I don't know. And if he had the nerve,
Money,
no, I know.
notoriety,
Yeah,
notoriety.
yeah, but if he would have had to taint the fight and made Canelo promise not to hurt him too much, or have the fight not be a real fight where it ends in a draw or something like that, that's robbing boxing. You know,
Yeah,
he's saying he wants boxing on his terms. Well, he's not rewriting boxing. You know, if he wants to be a boxer, a real boxer, a fighter, if you will, then he's going to have to fight a real fight. End of story. That's all he has to do. People have been asking him to do that for several years. He's failed to do it. So, in my opinion, Jake Paul is just a novelty, and he's got a big fan base, and he's a terrific promoter. He should stick to that. He should shift gears and become a Butch Lewis style promoter. Remember Butch Lewis? He should be a Butch Lewis style promoter. You know, flash and dash and promote some other fighters. He could make his money then, and that'll be that. Him fighting his brother was another discussion. I mean, come on.
yeah. See, I mean, those kind of things are just. It's not serious, you know.
It's and listen, you said about the dilution of the champions, and that's 100% of the problem today in the sport of boxing. Promoters feel they can't promote a show or be successful promoting a show unless they have a skunk hiding underneath the ring. Oh no, that's a different story. But unless there's a title on the line. And the fact that knowledgeable fans, which we all know there's a lot of them out there, they see a title and they immediately think it's an important fight. So, the titles are the problem, in my opinion. And the title holders, there's so many of them that it ruins the value of it. Where do you draw the line,
Yeah, I mean, personally, I like you had mentioned Jaime Munguia. I guess there's talk of a rematch with Saras. I'd rather see
that's signed. That's signed.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah. See, to me, I'd rather see. I mean, maybe they had a rematch clause, whatever. I'd rather see Jaime Munguia versus Jake Paul, and that would probably look like Burt Cooper versus Richie Molito.
Yeah, hey, you know what? I would like to see that fight because he's never going to hurt Munguia.
Oh, and Munguia would open a can of whoop ass, as the saying goes, and it would be over and around.
Yeah, but any of those guys I mentioned, Alex, would do the same. I can't see Jake Paul beating any of them. Aside from Munguia, even Berlanga, who fought Canelo. I mean, even him. This young kid Diego Pacheco, he would eat this guy up. He would eat Paul up. Anthony Yardy from England, he's a tough cat. David Morrell coming off the loss against Benavidez, or how about Benavidez? You want to talk smack? Get in the ring with that one.
I think one of the dangers of it is kind of like, and you've talked about this, is sort of the scenario where what was it? It was the rubber match, the third fight between Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, where Duran really needed money, and Duran was not the Duran of Montreal, who was ready to. He was insulting Ray Leonard's wife. He was like Charles Manson in that fight. Whereas when he fought him the third time, he was like, "Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Leonard. I'm really looking forward to boxing with you." Well, I think that's the danger of any of these guys fighting Jake Paul, is that they're like, "Sure, I'll go 12 easy rounds with you. You just made me the biggest paycheck of my entire life.
Well,
to get the IRS off my back."
You know who I said that about for years was Mayweather. When he fought, everybody says, he always fought these guys that were old, but beyond their prime, beyond their skill, and they fought him, and it was the same thing. Thank you, Mr. Mayweather. You just made me, a wealthy man. And how do you beat the hell out of somebody who's writing a check or responsible for you getting a check that's life changing? How do you get up to do that? Even in the worst case. Now Carl Froch is a guy that Jake Paul's better stay clear of because
Oh,
he
yeah.
can't stand Jake Paul.
Because Carl Froch, he could, you could get a he could give Carl Froch a Lamborghini and he would still kick the shit out of him.
No, I know. Listen, one of the greatest fights I ever saw. Actually, I saw Dax Khan was sitting right next to me. Was Jermaine Taylor against Carl Froch?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was one of the most exciting fights, and from that point on, I was a huge Carl Froch fan.
Oh yeah, Froch is the kind of guy that, if you had like a whole bunch of great Hall of Famers, like who would you pick if you're in a real seedy, dangerous bar? Who would you want with you? Froch would be one of those guys. Yeah, let's get him.
Yeah, let's take him because he looks like he'd have a few beers with you too, But just to getting into some of the news now. So basically, in a nutshell, Jake Paul needs to shut the f up, and back up his mouth, and let's move on. Now what you said earlier about the championships and the dilution and all of that. This was just announced the other day. Sebastian Fundora. Okay. Now, Sebastian Fundora fought Tim Tszyu, and in a fight that to this day, I still don't know why they didn't stop it. There was no reason that fight should have ever went past that cut. It should have been a no contest. Tszyu must have bled, most of his blood that night. It was like a movie. It was like I just saw a clip of a Saturday Night Live where Adam Sandler was playing a patient, and they said, "Oh, geez, you popped an artery," and it was like a hose hooked up with blood, and he's spraying everybody in the room. That's the way it looked, okay? But after that fight, there was a rematch clause, and obviously Tszyu couldn't fight right away, and he decided to go get beat by that other guy. And Fundora has yet to step in the ring. There was rumor that he was going to fight this guy and that guy, and Terrence Crawford was in the mix at one point because technically he's got the WBO and WBC world titles in the junior middleweight or super welterweight divisions. They just announced that he's fighting again. It's taking place March 22nd. And who's he fighting? A top guy? No, he's fighting Chordell
Booker. Yeah.
Chordell Booker. All right.
From
Now,
Stanford, Connecticut. He's a class act.
Okay.
He's a CBS guy.
I'm not disrespecting Booker, okay, from a fight perspective. But here's the problem. This is the problem, in my opinion, about championship fights. A championship fight needs to be against the champion, obviously, needs to fight a champion caliber fighter. Now, I'm not disrespecting Booker. He's not there yet. He happens to be ranked number 14 in the WBC. He's not ranked anywhere else. He is ranked number 5 in the WBO. I think they slid him up the ranks, but he's not ranked in any other sanctioning body or ring ratings. But here's the part that bothers me. There's 2 number 1 fighters that are ranked number 1 in the WBC or the number 1 in the WBO fight. Why isn't he fighting Serhij Bohachuk? He was the number 1 guy in the WBC, or the WBO guy who honestly shouldn't be number 1, but Alexander Zayas. I mean, doesn't it make sense for these champions, especially a unified champion, to go after at least the top 3 ranked fighter in one of in this case, he's got 2 belts. So in one of those organizations, rather than pick a guy like Chordell Booker?
Well, I'm going to push back a little. It was one of the fights that I was that I wanted to see if we could get a chance to get Birchfield to comment on last week, but I wasn't sure if it had been formally signed. I thought I had seen it on BoxRec, but if they just signed it this week, then it must not have been formalized yet. He's fought at Mohegan Sun a few times. I got to interview him. I think it was probably spring of 2023. He has a gym in Stamford, Connecticut. He is always in shape. He is a classy guy, gives back to the community. He's one of those kind of guys. But when people think of boxers, oh God, they must be all just mean, nasty people. Booker is the exact opposite of that. The guy is just an honorable guy. He's a good fighter. This is a good shot for him. I think he's sort of a boxer puncher. I know that gets overused. But I think he'll give Fundora a good fight. He hasn't had the chance to really, prove himself on the big stage. You're right. He's not top ranked yet because he hasn't had that breakout fight. This will be the chance to sort of see that. And I think that's one of the dangers in this sport, Bill, that you bring up, is that, a lot of these guys might have success on the regional level, but when you have a guy, like a Fundora who, needs a fight, you take the opportunity. Maybe it's too big of a leap. Maybe it's the chance to, prove to everybody. But I think that's one of the unfortunate things that happens. That's why Showbox was so good, because Showbox would take guys that are maybe like 12-1 and pit them against each other. So you get this barometer on like, wow, where are these guys who are in the top 20 ranked instead of the top 10? Because sometimes, as we just saw with Skull, sometimes the top 10, top 12 doesn't mean anything.
I get it.
So
I get it.
It's one of those things where,
I know, I get it. But here's the thing, and I appreciate that he's a Connecticut guy, and that's, a big plus for you. And I get it. And I
happens to be somebody that I had to.
I know.
I'm not saying he's going to mop the floor with Fundora.
No, but he's probably he's never faced a top-notch guy.
Right.
Okay.
But I think that's one of the things, that's unfortunate. What happens a lot of times for regional stars or guys who get regional success is they kind of toil away for a while there
until they get this shot.
Until they get a shot, right?
Okay, but my point isn't for Booker's side. I understand why Booker wants this fight. It's a shot.
Fundora, yeah.
It's an opportunity, etc. My argument is why he gets chosen instead of a legitimate top 3 guy from either of the sanctioning bodies that Fundora is holding a belt for.
Right.
That's my point. So why have a guy that's ranked number 1 or 2 or 3 in the same sanctioning body and not give him the option? Right. You know why? I'll tell you why. Because sanctioning bodies now charge sanctioning fees for elimination bouts.
Yeah.
So they would rather have those guys, that number 1 and number 3, fight each other for the chance to fight Fundora. And, once you're a champion, I'll never forget having Lou DiBella on this show, and he's talking about Andre Berto and how he's developing. Well, he was already a world champion. Once you put that belt, at least we got to hold these guys accountable. Once they call themselves a world champion, forget which division, which sanctioning body, etc., but they call themselves a world champion. They shouldn't be still developing. They need to be defending now. Now they need to show that they're a world champion, and they need to fight the guys that are paying their dues, putting in the time, working in the gyms, and getting an opportunity, not pick the guy that looks like the easiest opponent. And that's what I believe Fundora is doing. And again, no disrespect to the Connecticut guy. I hope, and to be honest with you, I hope Booker upsets the apple cart, because the more that happens, the less these guys will pick it. But in all due respect, Alex, you've seen this guy fight. You've talked to him. What you get, you mentioned all the good things about him. But when did he get the opportunity to get better? Because his team is holding back him from taking too many risks for this opportunity. They want this exact opportunity and hope that he shines. I get it, but the odds are going to be against him, man.
Yeah, I think that's, just like we're looking at we're talking about Canelo. I think sometimes these guys who, especially if they've had like a couple of recent big fights, with what's it called, Tim Tszyu, with Mendoza, I think then they get a time where it's like, I need a placeholder fight. I need just a defense, that kind of a thing. Give me a title defense. So, and I think that's, and hopefully to Booker's credit, he will be more than give Fundora a lot more than he's expecting.
Oh, I hope so. And the thing is that if they all of a sudden have to do a mandatory defense, okay, let me just throw a guy at me that'll please it. So now they're holding the titles hostage again.
Yeah, I'd be curious as to what network that'll be on, because I did hear the bad news. It was either today or broke last night that Top Rank and ESPN did. It doesn't really surprise me, because as much as ESPN acts like the worldwide leader of sports, they consider boxing a drop-down menu sport.
Well, they didn't renew the contract.
Yeah, which I think doesn't bode well for our favorite sport. That's for sure.
But they didn't renew the contract. Maybe they want to renegotiate the contract. Maybe somebody else is going to throw money at him, like Turki Al-Rashid. I mean, he makes sense to do that.
One thing that I did see is interesting. This week, Saturday night, the CES show is on DAZN.
No, I know.
That's new.
I
think
that's their second one. I think that's their second.
Oh,
one.
It is. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I must have missed the other one then, because it looks like it'll be on at the same time as another card. But at least it's on the zone. That's cool.
I'm gonna go over those the two fights that I'm picking that we're going to talk about a little later. But just one last thing on Fundora. I would have liked to have seen him fight Israel Madrimov. Madrimov is a tough fighter. The guy that TC had a hard time with. There's a good fight for him, or Callum Walsh, or even Erickson Lubin. I mean, those to me would have been legitimate fights for a unified. We're not talking about a guy that just picked up a belt. We're talking about a unified champion. So anyway, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, but I think Madrimov is dangerous. Lubin he beat already, but Madrimov, yeah, I mean, we know he's a dangerous out, even though he's only has like 10 or 11 fights.
Yeah,
but he gave Crawford difficulty.
But Lubin worked his way back into a position for the rematch. That's all I'm saying. He's fighting somebody else soon too. But there's a fight that was just announced today. It's up on BillyCBoxing.com. Ben Whitaker. I don't know. Are you familiar with Ben Whitaker? He's from England.
Wasn't he the trainer for is that somebody else? I thought he was the trainer for
No, he's a fighter. He's a light heavyweight.
Okay, no.
He's an Olympian, and he's really awkward. I love this kid. He does these funky things. Anyway, he fought Liam Cameron last year, and the fight he pushed him. He fell between the ropes, Whitaker, and he injured himself. And they had to go to the scorecards, and the fight ended up a draw. And Cameron is a guy with a lot of bad luck and everything. Well, anyway, they're having a rematch, and it's set for April 20th, which is Easter Sunday. It's a fight card that this up and coming, I think they've really done a lot, is Boxer, Boxxer Promotions, and Fraser Clark. He's on that card as well. He's fighting Ebenezer Scrooge, not Scrooge, Teta. And then also in the super welterweight division, Lee Cutler and Sam Eggington. So those are the three main fights on this card. Another
I'd
good
say the rankings being what they are, I would not have been at all surprised if he was fighting Ebenezer Scrooge.
Well, he all of a sudden came out of nowhere. He's ranked number 15.
Yeah, we hear he's got a whole new start.
I tell you,
Whole new outlook.
yeah, I tell you the truth. His attitude is much better
It's
now,
much better.
and he does have a nasty streak at times.
Yeah, he had one rough night of sleep, and he's a changed man.
But anyway, I got an email from my man Coach that I wanted to read, and we'll get our both of our opinions on it. And he says, "Hey Billy C, did you hear or read about the banana and the watermelon fiasco regarding the Davis Berncheck fight?"
Just saw that. Yeah.
Yeah. He says some alleged that Barancek shows that it wasn't him, that it was Teofimo Lopez. And this nonsense reminds me of something discussed in one of my first shows listening to you about Ron Lyle, famously recalling waking up from a near-fatal stabbing while in prison. The first thing I saw when I opened my eyes was a white man saving my life. Changed my whole outlook. This moment had a profound impact on Lyle, shifting his perspective on race and life. And, there's a link just about Lopez taking credit. But he says, last week, discussing Turki Al-Rashid, crazy possible fight destinations. And now we have Turki Al-Rashid naming Teofimo Lopez in a possible bout at Alcatraz. He says, while that's not exactly special, remembering James Scott, I used to love watching James Scott. That used to scare me just watching those fights on TV. That obviously fighting at prisons isn't the first time. James Scott fought at Rahway State Prison, and he fought Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Richie Cates, Bunny Johnson, Yaki Lopez, Jerry Martin, Dwight Muhammad Kwai. It was on NBC Sports, CBS, and HBO had the Mustafa fight when he was Eddie Gregory. What's your thoughts on the banana and watermelon and Turki Al-Rashid potentially having a fight at Alcatraz? What would they do? Would they have a shuttle boat? I mean, remember, that's on an island.
Yeah, that would be pretty wild. Well, and also you wonder, is there room for a venue there? I mean, it sounds like there'd be a lot of setup required, but he's got more money than anybody or close to it. So I'm sure he'd be willing to do it just to say he could do it. The watermelon and banana thing, yeah, that's extremely disturbing and pathetic. And it shouldn't be too hard to figure out who did it, because if it was a hotel, in a hotel, I mean, there's cameras everywhere these days. So I would think we should be able to get to the bottom of who did it. I think a lot of these sort of extracurricular activities, we'll call them, just like when the female fighter, sorry, I can't remember her name, but she was the one who fought, wasn't she fighting Michaela Mayer, and she got somebody drove by and threw paint at her or something. If they do involve people from an opposing camp, they should, of course, there should be business repercussions. That person should either be barred from ever appearing at the fighters. If they are somebody with the camp, they should be barred from ever appearing as a member of the fighter's entourage. Of course, if it's a criminal activity like that, they should be prosecuted. This doesn't sound like it's a criminal thing. It's a really crude and distasteful thing. But like I said, it shouldn't be too hard to figure out who did it. All they have to do is look at the cameras, I would think. I mean, unless it was a package given to room service, but even that, a package that was delivered, you would know who brought it into the hotel. Unless
unless they notified each other and said, look, we're going to do this. We're promoting this fight. This is one of the fights that's happening.
Yeah. See, that's the thing.
This is the mentality of today's fighters, the youth. I mean, this is all they know how to promote, because the promoters aren't promoting fights anymore.
Right.
The fighters are.
Right. And I think that's one of the unfortunate things with social media is things can get legs when they don't deserve legs. And because it gets shared around and it's incendiary. I just listened to this podcast about this woman who pretended she had cancer. And the judge she defrauded all these people, and the judge purposely sentenced her beyond the requirements of the sentence because she wanted to make an example. Because of our society today, she didn't want other people to do it, so she sentenced her to 60 months. So yeah, I think that's the thing, is that if this turns out to be just, that it was sort of an internal thing in order to get people to talk about the fight, that that's sleazy as well, and we should probably find out what happened.
Hey, two quick things, totally off topic and coming out of left field. I saw that the International Boxing Hall of Fame, Anne-Sophie Matisse is part of it this year, and I had the luxury of calling the Anne-Sophie Matisse fight against Holly Holm. It was on TV in New Mexico, and I called that fight, and I'll never forget that fight because Holly Holm is a huge star in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and when Anne-Sophie was there, she never looked like a fighter. And the weigh-ins, I mean, you kind of felt sorry for her. You thought that Holly was just gonna, just destroy her. And she was slow. She had, but man, was she powerful. I'll never forget her putting Holly Holm in Dream Street, and the referee thinking he's helping Holly. Anne clearly knocked her down. The ropes held her up. She was out on her feet. And the referee says, "No, she slipped. And there was another 15 seconds to go in the round, and she was beaten badly against those ropes. When she staggered back to her corner, and for the first half of the minute, and she was sitting right to my right. Her corner was right to my right, and I was watching her. And she was like not responding to Winklejohn, who Mike Winklejohn was her trainer, and was not responding to him until 30 seconds at least went by. Then I started seeing her moving her legs. And then she did get up and go back out there, but to no avail. But anyway, congratulations to Anne.
Yeah, that was a brutal knockout, and it was that's all I'd like to see happen to Jake Paul.
No, I know. I tell you, there's not many people that really like him, but he's the villain who's making a ton of money. The other thing I wanted to say is I saw The Ring. I was watching The Ring again last night, the old movie with Rocky, Kansas.
Oh, I never saw it.
I mentioned The Ring one time on the show. I said, "Oh, it's an old movie, a black and white movie, and it's about a Mexican fighter who basically it didn't end well for him. He wasn't. But one time I mentioned it. We were talking about great fight movies, and I said, "Oh, The Ring," and you went, "Oh, Rocky, Kansas."
I did.
And I was like, "Yeah."
Oh, maybe I looked it up and saw that he's in it.
No, Rocky, Kansas.
Oh, maybe
fight name.
Oh, maybe what's that?
Yeah, he was just listen. Watch the movie.
Because I don't think I've seen it. No,
it's a pretty good. It's like 1950s black and white, but very good boxing movie.
I just saw a movie that was really good that has a young Elizabeth Taylor in it called Suddenly Last Summer. You got to see that. That was a good movie.
Elizabeth Taylor, the most gorgeous I thought she was.
Oh, she's a knockout.
Well, in Cleopatra, she looked.
She's a knockout in this too. And there is one scene where she's like, "Oh, I don't look too good. I'm, you got to come see me later when I'm pretty." And it's like, "Baby, you're looking pretty good right now."
I know. All right, this weekend, 2 fights I think worthwhile watching. One is tomorrow. And it's the Denis Berinchyk against Keyshawn Davis. It's going to be on ESPN. It's for the WBO lightweight title. I'm going to give you some stats right here. Keyshawn Davis is 12-0 with 8 knockouts. The computer ranks him at number 7. The WBO has him ranked at number 1, and he's not rated in the WBA, WBC, or IBF, which really irks me. When they know that a guy is fighting an elimination fight or for a title, they immediately drop him from the rankings. So now we get to revert back finally again to the ring ratings, where he is ranked number 5. 8 knockouts of his 12 wins. He's only 25 years old. He's going up against Denis Berinchyk, who's 11 years older than Keyshawn Davis. He's 80 rounds as a pro, a 67% knockout ratio. His best fights, in my opinion anyway, he fought and stopped Anthony Yiggett in April of 23. He stopped Jose Pedraza, even though Pedraza was well past his prime, in February of last year. He won a decision over Miguel Manduo in July of last year. And he fought and stopped Daniel Lemos in November of last year, fighting 3 times last year. He's a pretty talented fighter. He steps in with Berinchyk, who is the WBO World Lightweight Champion. He's 36 years old, 11 years older. At 5'7", he's 2 inches shorter than Davis. He's got 74 more rounds of professional experience at 154. He's 19-0 with 9 knockouts. He's the computer ranks him at number 10, which is actually 3 spots behind Keyshawn Davis, and the ring ratings has him right behind Keyshawn Davis at number 6. His best wins, in my opinion, he stopped Jose Sanchez in December of 24. He won a decision over Yvan Mendy in December of 22. He too beat Anthony Yiggett in 2023. He won a 12-round decision over Emmanuel Neretti in his last fight, which was May of last year, to win his WBO World Lightweight title. What's your thoughts on this fight?
I'm looking forward to it. I think it should be a good fight. And I even though, Berinchyk has the, more fleshed out record, I like the youth and speed of Keyshawn Davis. So I'm going to be, I'm leaning towards him in beating Berinchyk. But even though, it is a step up for Keyshawn Davis, I think that, Berinchyk has a little too long in the tooth.
It's
fun. A good fight though, because those Ukrainians are no joke.
They're no joke. I think his last fight against Navarrete changed him a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how could you not? Navarrete, I mean, he takes a lot out of you, even, no matter win or lose. It's just there's a lot of punishment in that. And I think that, Davis is the younger, greener guy.
I just want to point out you weren't connected. I don't know if you heard me in the beginning of the show, but I was talking about the Chisora Wallin fight.
Oh yeah,
and I initially picked Chisora, but then listening to you and Coach in the chat room, I changed my mind at the last minute, which I will never ever do again. I follow you guys.
I was right about the Eagles.
Well, you both made sense, and I'm like, yeah, what am I thinking about Chisora, and look, he had a career performance, but I agree with you. I think Keyshawn Davis is a very talented fighter. Again, it reminds me of my favorite short story by Jack London, A Piece of Steak, where youth always prevails. And yeah. I've offered anybody who wants to read that essay, which really got me into boxing when I was a young kid, just drop me an email and I'll be certainly send it to you.
Just about Chisora again for a second. How crazy is it that probably the most winnable fight for him now is Anthony Joshua? Of those 3 at the end, he won, and it didn't get booed horribly. I think people would buy it, because I think Chisora could beat Anthony Joshua.
I don't know. I think you're going to see Joshua fight Tyson Fury. There's just too much.
That makes the most sense.
It is too much money.
Retire again.
Yeah, but of course he's going to you said it yourself. He's not going
Well,
to.
and he has to unretire and then take a warm-up fight against Billy Skull.
Yeah. Hey, listen. The fight that makes sense for Chisora, that was an elimination fight. So isn't Daniel Dubois the IBF champion? So should Daniel Dubois get by Joseph Parker, that's the fight. You're going to see that fight. And Daniel Dubois, in my opinion, is going to become the new face of the heavyweight division. And I think, and I know people are going to disagree. I'm probably going to start getting emails as soon as the words come out of my mouth. But I think that if Daniel Dubois fought Alexander Usyk again right now, he beats him.
Really?
He beats him. Usyk is a great fighter. I'm not taking anything away from him, pound for pound fighter, all that jazz. But Dubois, if he continues to fight the way he fought Anthony Joshua, and that is the style that is made for that man to come out and attack like a Mike Tyson, he's hard to beat. He's going to be hard to beat. And, if Anthony Joshua couldn't knock him out and Anthony Joshua's got pop, Anthony Joshua's mistake in that fight was he started going toe-to-toe when he was hurt. He should have been holding on and regained, some composure and try to outbox him. He had the height and reach advantage, and he didn't utilize it. And he fought right into Daniel Dubois' strength. And Dubois is not smaller than Usyk. But anyway, the next fight is I think it's going to be a great one. It's on DAZN. It's Saturday, February 15th. Jack Catterall going up against Arnold Barboza Jr. I love this kid Catterall. He's 30-1, 13 of his wins coming by knockout. His loss came a controversial split decision loss to Josh Taylor back in February of 22. He is 31 years old, 2 years younger than Barboza. He's got 218 rounds, which equals 20 more than Barboza. The computer ranks him at number 4. The WBA ranks him at 7. The WBO ranks him at number 2. He's not rated in the WBC or WBF, but the ring ratings have him at number 2. He's a southpaw, 5'7", which is going to be 2 inches shorter than Barboza, and he's got a 69-inch reach, which is substantially shorter than Barboza by 3 inches. His best fights, I mean, when you look at this guy's resume, he beat Jorge Linares in 2023. He avenged his loss against Josh Taylor by winning a unanimous decision in May of last year. And in his last fight, he beat up Regis Prograis in October in his last fight. My knock on Catterall is that he has a tendency to start too slow. He gives up those first rounds, and I think if he was able to shift it into second and third gear by the third round, he would be a tough out. He seems like he gets tired, but he never seems to run out of gas. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. I love watching him. He steps in the ring with Arnold Barboza Jr., 31-0, with 11 knockouts. He's ranked number 10 by the computer. WBO has him at number 1, not rated anywhere else, IBF, WBA, or the WBC. The ring has him at number 9. He's 33 years old, 2 years older than Catterall. And like I said, at 5'9", he's 2 inches taller. And with a 72-inch reach, he's got a 3-inch reach advantage. To tell you the truth, not to discredit Barboza, but I think his best win was his last fight, a 10-round decision over Jose Carlos Ramirez in November of last year. What's your thoughts on this fight?
I think it's going to be a really good one. I think we're going to be talking about it as one of the best. Well, I know it's only February, but I think we'll be talking about it as one of the thrillers of the year so far. And like you're mentioning, I mean, it's very hard on paper. They match up so well. They're a little bit of an age difference, a little bit of a height difference. Their records are so similar. So I think I favor Catterall slightly, not only because, it's basically his backyard. But also I think, he's a tough out for anybody. And I think it'll go the distance. So I'll say Catterall by decision, probably closer than it looks on the cards.
Barbosa is a tough out. I'm not really impressed with his resume, but he's undefeated, 31-0. Obviously, never been stopped. Jack Catterall had a chance to actually stop Prograis in Progra in his last fight. He did drop him, if I recall correctly, but he was able to get up and finish the fight. I really think that the division is sitting here for the taking for Jack Catterall if he can make quick work or even a great showing against Barbosa. I really think that this it has to be a title shot in his next fight. I mean, he just has to be. But I'm with you. I think Catterall will win this fight, and based on Barbosa's chin, I think that it will be a decision. But listen, don't get me wrong. I would not be surprised one little bit if Catterall stops him based on his last fight against Regis Prograis, because Prograis is a tough fighter, man. I mean, there's no question about that. I've seen him live. As a matter of fact, his last fight, I think it was at Turning Stone. I think I saw that fight, and I think he lost that one too. He came off of, or maybe that was the fight before Catterall. I think he had 2 back-to-back losses. I know you're looking it up right now.
Well, Regis Prograis?
Yeah.
I don't see him at Turning Stone.
What was his last fight?
His last fight was San Francisco. Devin Haney.
Devin Haney, no.
Was Catterall, and then before Catterall was Devin Haney.
All right, so it was the Catterall fight I'm thinking of that I saw him. The Devin Haney, I'm not impressed with Devin Haney. I'm just not. But in any event, I still think Catterall is the guy, and I'm picking him. So.
He fought Joel Diaz at Turning Stone back in 2017.
Joel Diaz. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about that. I must have been remembering the Catterall fight. I was surprised that his showing wasn't as good, but I like Catterall, and I did see that fight at Turning Stone. So, but in any event, I knew I saw him live. But in any event, any final thoughts, Alex?
No, I'm just looking forward to this weekend, lots of fights, and then next weekend, the real big one.
Well, next weekend, we'll be talking about that card, which is Jesus. I mean, it's one of the best cards on paper that I've seen in a very long time. And I mean, every single one of those fights are competitive, in my opinion, on paper, and I think they're gonna live up to the hype. Very rarely do we see cards that look so good on paper that actually live up to the hype. But I'm confident that next week's fight will live up to the hype.
I know. I wish I could spend $79.99 on every one of them.
I know you voted for that, but that one's not. I don't think that. I think that one's going to be $29.95.
Yes, you're right. I did see. I looked at it this morning, and yeah, I think you're right. $29.95, which is cool.
Thank goodness
That's
for
great.
Turkey.
Yeah,
thank goodness for Turkey Al-Rashid. Because
it's for it's same price as like a dozen eggs.
Yeah, I tell you. Well, I saw somebody on social media. They said they had a whole stack of eggs, like cartons of eggs, and he says, "I want to trade for a Lamborghini or something like that." And he says, "Don't try to lowball me. I know what I have here," which was kind of funny. But anyway, all right, boys and girls, make sure you tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Thanks for joining us today. We'll be breaking down and giving you our thoughts on the big fight next weekend, the big fights next weekend. and a whole lot more. Remember, if you want to get any comments, questions, concerns, drop me an email, Billy at Talkin Boxing. That's TalkinBoxing. Till then, I'll see you later. Ciao, baby. That wasn't my normal. I'm sorry, everybody. I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby. Yeah. That's it.